And you're welcome. Church services have been held across the country to usher in a new year. 2024 promises to be replete with various activities, especially politics, as the country heads to the poll to elect a new president and MPs later this year. We start from the Ashanti region, where various religious leaders have cautioned politicians and their supporters against any form of violence as the country prepares for elections this year. We'll be getting you details as my colleague Nanaya Alwachi Yadom attended a number of 31st night services. But we do know that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Obamia, who joined the Action Chapel International, is indicating that any form of disagreement which may arise from the 2024 general elections should be settled in court so that the country can maintain peace that we're currently enjoying.
I am here to say that as we enter 2024, this is going to be a year of a general election in Ghana. Ghana is a blessed country. We are the most peaceful country in West Africa and the second most peaceful country in Africa. We don't have to take it for granted. I believe that when you look at all our neighboring countries, you have a lot of turmoil, but Ghana seems to be an oasis of peace. But I don't think it has just happened by coincidence. I believe God has his hands on Ghana, and we should continue to pray to maintain our peace and stability in Ghana. So we may have differences politically, but the election should not result in any instability. In Ghana, when we have difficulties or disagreements over elections, we go to court and we settle the matter in court. You and I were not there, and we will settle it that way and go back and live peacefully. And this is how I expect the 2024 election to go peacefully. But we have to pray. Papa, please remember the country in your prayers as we execute the 2024 election. I would say that Papa threw an open invitation for next year, and I am very hopeful that next year I will be here to give testimony for what you have done.
Well, the Vice President there, but not all celebrated the New Year in church. Here in Accra, it was a close call at the Black Star Square as fireworks misfired, endangering the lives of thousands of revelers who gathered on New Year's Eve. Michael Ashali was there for us.
It's the last night of 2023, and the world divides into two distinct realms. One filled with fervent prayers, echoing in sacred spaces, seeking solace in the hallowed halls of worship.
Whatever you are believing the Lord for in 2024.
As a practicing Christian, it's good that you come and thank God for a very good year, a very difficult year, that you would pray to God to forgive you for your sins, and also pray to God to usher you into a year 2024.
I'm happy with my family. From January to December, we are saved. Nothing bad has happened to us, so we are here to give God all the glory, to thank Him.
Others embrace the night with joyous beats and laughter.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. And you did great, man.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And I appreciate Ghana. Next year, we have to be bold. Don't worry, you have for it. Yeah?
It's Coco Meti Tree Kakra Kakra.
What's the tree kakra kakra? Okay, let's do a small tree. So move free here.
Sika, money.
Move free America.
America.
Okay, so
this year I decided to come to the beach just to come and have fun.
And how is it going?
Oh, so smooth.
Irrespective of where you find yourself, all are united by the shared anticipation of bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the promise of a new year. And at the stroke of midnight, fireworks lit up the night sky. The cheer at the Black Star Square from the splendid fireworks quickly turned upside down.
So it's the stroke of midnight, and officially we are in 2024. The excitement here at the Black Star Square is through the roof. Thousands and thousands of people are here to be part of the community, ushering themselves into a brand new year. And as usual, the Blaster Square is lit with fireworks lighting up the sky. Okay, so I guess that's supposed to be a firework that has misfired. So it seems thrilling for those who are watching, but certainly for those who are working with the fire department, this is something to be concerned about. So yes, some of the fireworks are misfiring, and you can see gentlemen for the Ghana National Fire Service are rushing to get to the grounds. And a fire tender together with an ambulance has been brought to the scene, and the lights to the Independence Arc here has gone off. It used to be lit in the Ghana colors, red, gold, green, and black star on top of it there, all gone off. I must suppose that must be a very serious incident that has happened here.
Nevertheless, the enjoyment goes on. Many people simply refuse to go to sleep.
It's like they're not like life. Some are in the hospital, some are in the prison, but we are alive. To celebrate to see 2-4, Master, inshallah, is not easy. I'm very happy. I've been happy as somebody.
Oh, we came back from church and we decided to take a picture here.
Take a picture, and how is it going?
It was cool.
Talk to me about the lights. This, for me, I mean, looks beautiful. What do you think?
Oh, it's beautiful.
We are snapping pictures. We've entered into a new year. Yeah, so we are enjoying ourselves.
Interesting. I know my forehead is wet, so it's shiny, but your forehead is shiny. Is that oil?
Yeah.
Oil from where?
From church.
Why?
We are entering into a new year, so I have to take anointing oil to, yeah.
But how about you? I mean, see you as the photographer. How many? Yeah. Let me see the number of pictures you've taken.
I've gotten like not less than 50.
Not less than 50 pictures.
Yeah. But I haven't started myself.
So just the two of them, 25 each.
Yes.
And your own 225. That'll be 75 pictures.
So I'm waiting for my own.
At 2 a.m., during the bustling rush hour, the streets were jam-packed with vehicles and pedestrians. Yet, the police were actively managing the chaos. A brief city tour would make it obvious. The police presence was widespread. Even the Inspector General of the Ghana Police Service, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, was on the grounds. Assistant Commissioner of Police Grace Ansa Akrofi explained why.
The occasion is 1st of January. It's a new year. We know that in Ghana, the New Year festivities is characterized by a lot of celebration. A lot of people are in the town. And as the Ghana Police Service, our duty is to ensure that there is peace, law and order in the country. And so throughout the Christmas up till now, the police service under the leadership of Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare has deployed thousands of police officers all across the country. And so today he's on the ground to encourage his men to see the safety of our patrons and to make sure that every person that is out here, every person that is in their home, anybody is safe, secure, and there's law and order.
She says the police is hopeful 2024 will be better for the service.
And our message to all Ghanaians is that we wish you a Merry Christmas, a belated, and a Happy New Year. And we urge you to continue to work with us to ensure your safety, security, law, and order. We are happy to serve you and to serve you better each day.
Many compared 2023 to 1983 when Ghana experienced a great famine. Some even argue that 2023 might have been even tougher. Despite this, there's a prevailing optimism that 2024 holds a promise of a brighter future.
I'm graduating from school, so, just to grab the degree and then have more fun after school.
Interesting. What about you? What do you expect to do or accomplish in 2024?
Hopefully get a degree,
BMW.
You want to buy a BMW in 2024?
Our apartments, we get married. That's it. So it's really hard to predict. Say maybe they'll win or lose. It's really hard. So I don't know why the government will be like, after your struggle, then it will be like, they'll deduct tax. 10%. Because when you are placing the bet, the government will not give you the money for the placement of the bet. But I don't know why when you chop the bet, they'll be like, you then go deduct. It doesn't make sense. For me, it doesn't make sense.
I hope that 2024 is good to you. For Joy News, my name is Michael Ashale. Enjoy.
We take you now to the Ashanti region because church services have been held across the country to usher in the new year 2024. As we know, it promises to be replete with various activities, especially politics, as the country heads to the polls to elect a new president and MPs later this year. We start from the Ashanti region, where religious leaders have cautioned politicians and their supporters against any form of violence as the country prepares for the election this year. Nana Yao Boachiadom was out there and comes through with this report.
Praise and worship at various churches as we enter the first day of 2024. As an election year, it is already anticipated to be crucial for political parties.
2024 is going to be an election year. So one of the things that we are praying is that God will give us a peaceful year, and we are admonishing every Christian that whatever we do in 2024, it should bring glory to God. Let's try our best to work in such a way that we are working together and we bring peace all throughout the country. It is very essential that if most of the population in Ghana say they are Christians, then we should let that peace of God that Christians preach all about should be emphasized and should be seen among people in the nation.
Leader of the Power Chapel Worldwide, Prophet Victor Kusi-Boateng, ushered his congregation into the new year. He, however, cautioned political actors to ensure a peaceful election in December.
A heart for the nation is better than anyone's agenda. And I appeal to both MPP, NDC, and all the other parties to have the heart of the nation to heart, to consider the young men and the young women, and never to instigate any kind of violence. For what the Lord will do, he will do. If the other party wins, the other should not bring in any kind of chaos. So let the interests of this nation outlive and outweigh your ambition as a politician, because the nation Ghana first and your ambition second. As a believer, I know that the Lord sets up kings and brings down kings. And so I think that it will be irresponsible on the part of the leaders of any political party not to talk to their followers, to adhere to the protocols of this nation, and to let them understand that the interest of this nation is the prime thing that every one of us should desire. And so every one of us should speak to our followers, speak to your followers, let them understand that regardless of what result comes, the nation Ghana first and every other thing secondary.
Pastor Christian Boache called on party sympathizers not to engage themselves in any form of chaos during the election.
There's only one nation. There's only one Ghana. Even those who are outside the country, when they leave, they want to make investment and come home. And therefore, we must protect what we have. If the government will come, the government will go. I think what we should do is vote for the best person and then seek for the peace of the nation. If we ban the nation, we can't make any other nation ours. And therefore, we must all do well. We should not be just sentimental and emotional. We say, let us do what is right and remember that if we preserve our nation, it's for our own good.
EPA boss Mr. Henry Kwabena Kokofu, who worshipped at the Power Chapel Worldwide, encouraged political actors not to engage in any form of chaos during the 2024 general elections.
What to be is what God has ordained and God has said. And God, in his own wisdom, is going to choose a leader for us as a nation. So nobody in his rightful mind should think that they can plunge this country into chaos if the election does not go the way they want. For me and my new patriotic party, we reside in the Lord, and we have all the confidence that with the kind of trust we have in God, we shall break the age. We are bringing in Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President of the Republic, and we are so much confident that with him it is possible.
For Joy News, Nana Boache Dankwayadom, Kumasi.
And while we know that the year promises to be very busy with political activities as the parties intensify their campaign ahead of the December 7 presidential and parliamentary primaries, most of the parties spent last year reorganizing their structures. The governing New Patriotic Party will continue that this year. So how did that exercise reorganization go, and how will that impact political campaigns ahead of the general elections this year? And that's why we're putting together this discussion for you here on The Pulse. Joining me now is Dr. Azar Santi, political scientist, University of Ghana. We also have Mustafa Gbande, Deputy General Secretary of the Opposition National Democratic Congress. Mohammed Haruna is the Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, and Musa Dankwa is the Executive Director for Global Info Analytics, all joining the conversation. Mr. Kofi Akpaloo is also founder and leader of the LPG. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending some time with us. Already, we're getting to see what some Ghanaians on social media think about the elections coming up. But let me just first of all find out from you, Haruna Mohammed, since you are with the governing New Patriotic Party, you're not done yet in terms of your reorganization process. The process is, in fact, at a very crucial stage where you'll now be electing your parliamentary candidates by end of this month. So let's start off from where the NPP is in terms of reorganization, and what would you say is your status going into the next elections? And kindly unmute for us so we can hear the point you're making, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I take the time to wish your station and your other sister station, all media houses in Ghana, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We in the MPP have taken the roadmap to make sure that we get the right candidates to represent us in the 2024 general elections in terms of parliamentary representation. We are done with presidential primaries. We have our flag bearer in the person of the most respected, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. And we have done with the orphan constituencies, and we are going to go all out from tomorrow. That is from tomorrow. Vetting committee should be going vetting for the vetting to be conducted for the sitting members of parliament. We'll be doing the elections on 27th, and therein we'll have all our representation in terms of parliamentary representation set for the 2024 general elections. Moving forward into the 2024 elections, we are very clear and resolute in our mind that we are battle ready and we are sure of victory when it comes to 2024 general elections. We are not interested to have a single life to be shared for His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to become president of Ghana. We are not going to go to the polling stations with cutlasses or any weapons that would have to go there. However, if anybody decides to go there with any cutlass, we may see them as just sticks. And I think that we'll be able to conquer and make sure we defend the Constitution and the sanctity of our democracy in Ghana. We have not been trained to be violent. We have not been trained to attack. We have not been trained to vilify people. We have always remained the great conservative party, a liberal democrat party. We believe in rule of law, we believe in selection, and we believe in election. And I think that this going forward, the MPP will still maintain the course of which.
In fact, these sentiments have been, and these sentiments have been echoed by the president himself and the vice president, all who've delivered their messages. And talk about the vice president, though, who's now the leader of your party, leading into the next elections. He's speaking about what might happen this year. Very confident of the economy bouncing back. How many times would the vice president keep promising, the revival of the Ghanaian economy, which many say is collapsing, if not collapsed?
I don't know what you are looking at. Since ever he says that he's promising the economy will bounce back. You have seen that there has been several strikes and positive results that has come out from that. You see the rundown of inflation. You also see reportage from other international bodies with regards to the turnaround of the Ghanaian economy. The vice president don't just speak. He speaks to data, and this is verifiable that media houses can't look at it. We are going forward to 2024 general elections, and we know 2024 alone also holds its own dynamics. But we have presented a budget to the people of Ghana, and the parliament has so approved that particular budget. So many economic policies have been put in there. Other indicators have been measured and projected towards 2024. And we are very confident that the road that we are traveling on with regards to the management of the economy will bounce back, and Ghanaians will feel very comfortable to make sure that the MPP is the only alternative that is supposed to hold this country and make sure that everything is well for us, because we have done it before, moving Ghana from EPIC and then making sure that we have been able to provide enough job opportunities, even though we have not been able to get everybody on board. We have made sure that security situations are set. We have made sure that in terms of health devastating nature, in terms of COVID, we have been able to withstand and be able to protect the lives of the citizens of Ghana. And these are the key marks that we are all looking at.
And yet in all of this, it appears that the sentiments on social media, it might not be scientific in terms of what's the actual reflection on the ground. Ghanaians there feel that John Mahama is more likely to, capture their hearts, if I should put it that way, going into the next elections. I'll give you the opportunity to, react to that latest that we're learning of. But it's a good time to hear from Musa Dankwa, who's also joining us because he's with Global Info Analytics. They have done some work, of course, starting off with the inner city and zonal communities. Now we're hearing about social media. Musa Dankwa, what do you have to say about this latest findings? Social media, is it reality, by the way? And I'm not hearing you, so if you could just, hit that button for me so I can.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Loud and clear. I can, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We've just finished a poll, and in the poll, about 78% of Ghanaian voters are on social media. So you cannot completely ignore the views of voters on social media. Only 22% said they have no social media presence. So social media is quite a formidable tool. And also we've seen a gradual increase in the number of voters who really make themselves or avail themselves in the political campaign on social media, mostly on Facebook and TikTok. And TikTok is a rising kind of platform where people are able to engage their political leaders directly. Regardless of whether you have a degree or you haven't been to school, people feel free and are able to communicate freely on TikTok. So it's going to be a very big tool people should not ignore. The sentiments, I would say, is being reflected in what we have seen in the polls, as far as we have seen the numbers. We cannot brush it aside. There's a correlation between what is happening on social media and what's happening on the ground.
And speaking of that, though, social media and its influence on what's likely to happen this year, what do you predict might be the case? Because we've seen some of the works already out there appearing to suggest that a certain candidate is much more, favored in terms of the opinion polls on social media. Is that something the political parties should be worried about?
No, I think they should be worried about because if you look at people who are on social media, mostly they are influencers. They tend to influence people within their environments. And if their sentiment is not very good, that should be something that the ruling party must seek to address. If you look at the recent sentiment analysis done by Imani Ghana, it showed that about 20% of the sentiments expressed on NDC was positive, whereas it was only 10% for MPP. So that's a huge gap.
I see. Mathematically speaking, it's indeed a very wide gap, but many are asking if that has the potential to translate to what might happen on the ground, because yes, you have quite a significant population, as you're saying, 20% plus, who are not online. They've not expressed their views as well.
Yes. If you look at the last poll that we published, October poll, in that poll, weighted, John Mahama was on 48% out of about 5,800 samples we interviewed across the country. And Dr. Bawumia was around 28%. So the gap is almost like a double gap. So we are seeing the gap on social media and the gap in the field to be very much the same.
I see. I'll come back to you on what probably might change, because this is politics. 9-10 months before the elections is quite a significant period. What needs to change? What factors might influence the turnout and also the electoral results going into the elections, and what you've been finding out in your latest survey? But let's hear from the other actors. Mustafa Gbande is also joining us. Is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Quite a favorable results for you, looking at what Imani is saying and what the last polls from the Global Info Analytics has been trying to point out. But some say that you still have got much more work to do, particularly when you're dealing with a governing party that says they will break the 8-year political cycle?
Okay, so good afternoon to my colleagues, and then good afternoon to our cherished listeners. Happy New Year to all of them. The NDC in the last year have been able to organize itself as a solid political party with credibility. We have been able to hold forth a united party that is ready to take over power. We have our flag bearer in place, who is a man of credibility. He's done it before. He has a track record that Ghanaians trust. This year, we'll reflect about the challenges that this government have posed to Ghanaians. If you look at the fact that this government has become, scandals have become habitual to them. Every day, we have scandals upon scandals upon scandals. And they continue to, out of impunity, want to blame external shocks such as COVID for the cause of their broadly corruptions, their inefficiencies, and deliberate promises that they gave to Ghanaians, which ended up to be fraud. Now, merging that with the outcome of Imani Ghana's research, you recall that the MPP government led by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo is the only government in the history of our country that youth of this country will have to demonstrate against on social media. That is a level at which human rights have been trampled upon. The rule of law has been thrown to the dogs. And so youth have not gotten opportunity to even demonstrate physically out of the difficulties that this government have made them to face. So social media was the place. Now, if you look at the Christmas package they gave us, the SML expose that Manasseh Azuri investigated, which they are trying to cover up, but we will discuss it full scale and will expose government further, that became a concern to a lot of Ghanaians. They will discuss that on social media. In the MPP headquarters, Ghanaians are trying to find out that is it true that John Boadu and the General Secretary are at war. It's a concern that a political party in government, apart from one breakaway, the General Secretary is being fought at. People will want to know. So that is a discussion on social media. It obviously concludes that the popularity of the MPP out of the social media pools reflect negativity, corruption, and the level at which young people of this country demonstrate their concerns against the government on social media.
Indeed, all of these sentiments are being, brought to bear simply because of the major factor you're talking about, the economy. The Vice President has spoken in his New Year message, delivering that address and pointing out to Ghanaians that things will indeed turn around this year. That indeed, if it's true and if it works out, of course, might change all of these sentiments that people have about the Vice President.
There are no sentiments to change about the Vice President. He's a man who doesn't have integrity because he hasn't kept his word. This is a Vice President who led a campaign of one village, one dam, took money from World Bank. Let him account to the people of this country what happened to those dams. This is a man who led one district, $1 million, one village, one district, one factory. What became of these policies that he promised Ghanaians? Now, the widespread of corruption that every Ghanaian can feel is not resided in pools. It is resided in the pocket economy of Ghanaians. People went to Christmas without having to be able to celebrate. If you go to the hospital and your mother is dying because health insurance is not working, it's a major concern. People who cannot longer afford to pay their bills. Let me remind the MPP that over 30% of salaried workers go back to government as tax, and they have misused same in the last 6 years.
Okay.
1 year for you to exit government, you are promising a rebound of the economy. To do what?
Well,
they cannot do.
Well, at least that's the promise. We don't know if that will be fruitful this year.
We should stop entertaining promises from people who do not have the credibility to carry out same.
Okay.
The MPP, Nana Akufo-Addo, and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, my senior brother, does not have what it takes to carry out their own promises, and Ghanaians will not take them serious.
Oh, okay. But then what's likely to also change about, the dynamics of the elections? We're not focusing as much on, the emerging political parties. Let's bring in, first of all, Kofi Akpalo, who's with the Liberal Party of Ghana. He'll be joining us shortly. Dr. Asante is also with us. And Doc, you've listened to all of these parties involved. The NDC has spoken, the NPP has spoken, the Vice President himself, who's now leading the party into the next election, is giving the assurances that things indeed will change. But when you look at the polls as well, then Imani comes through to say the sentiments are against you. How do you see, that they are looking like for all of the major political parties going into this year's election?
Blessed, good afternoon. I think I missed the tail end of your question. If you can,
I'm just asking about your forecast. If you can hear me, I'm just asking about what you see happening this year. Looking at all of the sentiments being raised with the latest findings coming through from Imani. Dr. Santi, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think. This year is going to be. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hello, Blessed. Can you hear me too? Can you hear me, Blessed?
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
Yes, what I'm saying that this year election is going to be an interesting one. Interesting in the sense that right from now, we are going to see a lot of activities. MPP is going to the poll to elect the members of parliament, and then the other parties would also follow suit. You are also going to get running mates from the two giant political parties and the other minor parties as well. So there's going to be a lot of activities. But we must bear in mind that there are things we must consider and consider them well. One, what will be the role of the individual in all these? We the people, because democracy revolves around the people. What will the people do? So we are going to see people being educated about their voter issues. We are going to have people express their concerns and all that. And we expect that people will also be vigilant in the whole electoral process. Because after all, according to Price, vigilance is the price of liberty. If we really want this democracy to continue to be strong, then the people must play their role according to the rules of the game, and then be vigilant. And that is one thing. Another thing that we are going to see is the activities of the political parties, which have already recapped. But we want to see the political parties, engage in campaign of issues, where issues that concern Ghanaians are brought to the fore, where promises that are made, government is made accountable to explain them as to whether they've been able to deliver them or not, and whatever reason that they have for delivering or not being able to do so, they will explain. Of course, we want to also see opposition party and the other parties also coming out with fantastic ideas that resonate with people, ideas that deal with our problems. We want to see, if you like, a clean campaign devoid of rancor, void of bickering, attacks, hooliganism, vandalism, and the rest of them would not be part of this campaign. That means that we want to make sure that we have security right on top. to deliver this. We will not accept that situation where people are gunned down during election and the rest of them. That incident will not be repeated this year.
And since you're bringing this Doc, since you're bringing this issue up, the question, of course, needs to be there. What do you sense in terms of the political atmosphere of the country? Religious leaders, we've heard even the vice president raise that concern that this year's election ought to be peaceful. Is it the case that all of these actors sense some sort of tension, or the fact that the stakes are simply high going into the election?
Election is characterized by a certain level of tension one way or the other, that we know. But it is always in our interest to bring that tension down and make sure that play by the rules of the game. If it is where we want to go overboard, cross the lines, that you really see election degenerating into violence and the rest of them. Ghanaians will far. So we will not countenance any election that is violent. We will not countenance.
It appears we're having some challenge there with Dr. Asante. We'll definitely reconnect with him later on. But I also want to, just one more time, before I bring you in, Haruna, let's hear from Musa Dankwa, because there's a critical point to establish here, that the issue about, the factors that might play in your favor just to turn, the ratings around. Musa Dankwa, what do you think about, this polling that has come out from Imani? What's, the factor, the major factor that could overturn all of these sentiments on social media?
There are 4 key issues as far as the polling numbers have shown for the past 2 years, and those haven't changed. Number 1, on the minds of people is the economy. Overwhelmingly, people said economy is the issue. Number 2 is job situation. The job is also another key issue that the government must really work on if they are to turn around their fortunes in the poll. 3 has been education. I mean, you would have thought that maybe with free education will not be an issue any longer. But anytime there is a school opening and there is chaos, I mean, it becomes an issue to be concerned with. And I think the 4th has been corruption in the last October poll. But I think there has been a slight change between October and December in terms of the 4 items that are crucial for voters. I think what we are seeing in the current poll is that corruption has been replaced by roads, which is a lot of money that the government needs to fix those roads. So, yes, the things that people are concerned about are changing the dynamic, but the top 2 or top 3 remains the same.
I see.
Jobs, economy, education.
Very major factors indeed. Musa Dankwa, thank you for spending some time with us. Haruna Mohammed, as we wrap up on the conversation, you want to react to these 3 or 4 major factors. How do you intend to change, or turn the corner, as the president will use that term?
Bless. Thank you very much. Before then, I've heard about inputs on social media reportage that has been tabled before the discussion. If you look at the research findings, you will see that the negative reportage you're talking about, remember that the MPP is in government, the NDC is in opposition. There is that need that Ghanaians will be talking more about the government because they believe it is the government's responsibility to respond to the need of the people of Ghana. So whatever that goes wrong is going to be discussed, and this is going to be measured as they say that it is a negative reportage. Remember, misinformation has played a very key role in 2023, where it turns out that it is absolutely not true. All corruption cases that have been mentioned are perception of corruption, but not evidence of corruption. So these are matters that we all look at. My colleague is talking about credibility. There is one person that has lost his credibility in this country, and that is the person of John Dramani Mahama, who has the albatross of the 4th expedition, the Amajaro contract, government official 1, and all that is put on him. He's talking about the 1 million per constituency. He doesn't know that the ambulances that he enjoy and the good citizens of this country enjoy, the ambulances that John Mahama, when he has accident and he had to call, is coming from the $1 million project that His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia supervised. For us, if you forget about the data, we will have the opportunity to remind you that that report that has changed out in terms of the Imani Ghana, you see that 14 million, the MPP, vis-a-vis 3 million just for the NDC. This is a very huge milestone that we have chopped, but we are not going to jubilate over such findings. We only improve on what the findings say. Yes, I take cognizance of the job situation that has been mentioned. If you look at the trajectory, you see that the MPP has provided more job opportunities for the teeming youth of this country. Remember, in 2016, we came through with our manifesto called the Agenda for Jobs. We have done so well in terms of job provision in all the sectors, and will continue to do so in 2024. We will stand as the only alternative that will be able to solve most of the, or the majority of the unemployment situation in this country. When it comes to economy, we are uncontestable in terms of performance, in terms of upgrade, in terms of solutions. We continue to do that. I will always restrain myself when it comes to speaking to data. I understand the taxation level of this country. I have done taxation and understand the tax table. It is absolutely falsehood that you say 30% of Ghanaian people who earn salary goes back into pay as you go. The table for taxation has its own symptoms. And I stand to tell my colleague that when you are desperate for political power, you must be very careful of the information you put out, because one day you would leave politics or you stay in politics, but you would champion a career that is going to speak about you. So when we talk about education, the MPP has made several strides when it comes to the primary level, where we implemented the FQ program. When it comes to the senior, the second cycle, where we implemented the free senior high school policy. Assuming there was no such policy, then the problem in education would have been very high. I have always said that people will appreciate free senior high school in 10, 20 years to come, because to measure impact, it is very great because it takes a longer period of time. And that is why you have seen most of the graduates in the senior high school policy today scoring highest in 73% in terms of a pass rate for our students. Remember, it is in West Africa, not just in Ghana. And we are touted as the people that have been able to perform very well. Right. In terms of corruption, all of us wants to fight corruption, but we must also be very mindful of the fact that corruption cases that are reported now are perception. And we think that all of us has to join hands to fight this. Okay. And I think that we in the MPP will continue to be a listening government and a party that will make sure that 2024 is going to be very peaceful. All right. I'll call on my brother to make sure that when he is speaking, talking, he should not be moved by the mic or the crowd or whatever to talk about violence and whatever things that he has to do. Okay. I heard his talk, and it is very, very disheartening for him to have said what he said. And I think that the public require an apology from him. But if he still wants to go to that trajectory, to go to the polling station with cutlasses, I assure him that young boys will collect the cutlass from him just as they collect sticks from mad people.
Haruna Mohammed is the Deputy General Secretary of the Governing New Patriotic Party. Mustafa Gbande, your final words on this?
Much. I think that basically what is more important is that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama obviously have been doing some consultations as far as his next regime policy framework is concerned. He has been consulting with chiefs, artisans, various people who are affected by the economy, to see their contribution towards what we call the People's Manifesto into building the Ghana that we want. For us, in that in that conversation a campaign of issues. We will thoroughly dissect issues of corruption. We will thoroughly dissect issues of non-performance. We will deal with issues of promise and fail. Aruna talks about who should help government fight corruption. When the corruption is so centralized to the top, up to where the president is seated, who is going to fight that corruption? The president is corrupt. His appointees are corrupt. Haruna is saying that it is perceptional when they say that government officials are involved in illegal mining and depletion of forest resources, but yet we have not been able to arrest all these people. Job creation, even NAPCO, that the MPP created, NAPCO, it has collapsed. The young people who have sacrificed, thinking they were going to get hope of jobs, they have lost those opportunities. They have even not been paid about 3 months to 6 months. Haruna talks about job, but the promise of job, I believe, is contained in the 24-hour economy policy of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The promise of the economy, the rebuild of the economy, is contained in the 24-hour economy policy. And we've been explaining what is meant by the 24 economy hour, which today we will not explain. But going forward, the NDC is going to intellectually tackle 2024 general election, devoid of rancor, devoid of violence. We want to uphold the rule of law towards institutions doing what they are supposed to do. Right. The sitting president is a beneficiary of electoral violence, where Ghanaians were killed for him to become a president. Those people have not been compensated. Their families have lost breadwinners. The NDC is not a violent political party and will not engender a violent conversation any day.
I see.
Wherever they think there was an issue of violence from is regrettable. But I want to tell Mohammed that he is talking about being popular on social media when they have lost miserably in the recent assembly election that was conducted. In fact, the chairman of the Council of State, Dr. Nana Srebo, his own electoral area, the MPP have lost.
Okay.
And the person who was contesting there is a presiding member.
I see.
As we speak, in the constituency of the local government minister, he has lost miserably to the extent that he is not even going back to parliament.
All right, and I'm
the people have rejected the MPP.
And I'm grateful, gentlemen. If I give you the opportunity, you'd both be at each other on this matter. Mustafa Gwande is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. I need to put on record that the local level elections does not have the political party sponsoring. I mean, you can do your own analysis, but officially speaking, the political parties do not have a stake as of now by law in the local level elections. Aaron, I know you have some few words, but I won't give you the opportunity because you'd go on and on and on at each other. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for spending some time with us here on The Pulse. We also have to talk about some young persons in parts of the Ashanti region who crossed over the 2023 to 2024, consuming local brews, attire, as we understand, singing along secular music to usher in the new year. Interestingly, their base is directly opposite a church that was filled with believers to worship. And now Juma has more.
From a small speaker, various songs that made waves in the previous year play. In excitement, the young men sing along in expectation of the new year. The theme of the songs played in sequence was prosperity. The group positioned itself outside the premises of Abraham's Temple Assemblies of God. Though the church was in the middle of a crossover service, these young people were not perturbed.
2024, any above for now, it's in your mind.
To keep them awake in anticipation of the new year, the band of young men boil a herbal tea popularly known as attaya. Here, drinking of the tea is open to all, including people who had come to church for the crossover service.
Yeah, you can be 68.
The worry on the mind of many is why these people would pitch camp in front of the church. Just like those who crossed over in church, these young people have their New Year resolution.
23 no, chamachi rough. Sinamai, Bilman become about me, chamachi. But 24 there, yeah, Jeff and yes, you have for slow. Aha, you be any. You're not going to say you be away, your boy. Many
on the streets of Kumasi, despite how they transitioned into the new year, are expectant of what it holds. For Joy News, Nana Aljima reporting.
Interesting revelations there, and what a way to cross over into 2024. I wonder what yours is. You're still watching The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. We're taking a break. When we get back, we'll tell you more about what's happening ahead of this year. Most controversial news stories that we wrapped up the year 2023 with was Ghana's preparation towards the start of the mining of lithium. The contract arrangement between the Lands Ministry and Barari DV, a subsidiary of the Australian-based Atlantic Lithium, was the main source of controversy, which has been granted a 15-year mining lease for the exploration of lithium in the Uya area of the central region. The project, with a life cycle of 12 years, is expected to produce approximately 350,000 tons of concentrate of up to about 6% lithium oxide. Lands Minister Samuel Abujinapo has been explaining the deal at an engagement with civil society groups in Accra.
Honorable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Samuel A. Jinapo, CEO Minerals Commission, Martin IEC, fellow colleagues here, good morning. I'm honored to welcome you all to this crucial stakeholders dialogue on a matter of great significance. Ghana's lithium agreement with Barari DV Ghana Limited. The spirited public debate this agreement has generated underscores its importance, not just to the industry, but to the broader Ghanaian public. I am particularly excited and honored to have the minister himself present in this room. It shows how serious government takes this issue and ready to listen to civil society input. I really hope that by the end of this conversation, we would all have a collective understanding and agree on a pathway that we can present to Parliament to have a constructive debate on the agreement when it gets to Parliament. On behalf of myself and the CSOs here gathered, I'd like to welcome you to this convening, and also welcome the minister particularly to here, and to ask him to share a few thoughts with us. Thank you very much.
Madam, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction and setting the pace for our discussions this morning. From the very outset, I think it's absolutely important that I point out, and I've said this on many occasions, that when matters of national importance, of national consequences arises or are put on the table, public discourse, public scrutiny, public interrogation, public critique by various stakeholders, civil society most prominently, ought to be welcomed and is welcomed by government. And so the notion or the suggestion that government is somehow against contributions, critique, suggestions, alternatives, or what have you, to the positions of government, I think is totally not correct. First of all, as minister responsible for mines,
I sign mining leases periodically. And when I have to sign mining leases, I don't invite the press to witness the signing of those mining leases. But on this particular occasion, given the importance the president and his government attaches to the management and exploitation of the green minerals of our country, I signed the mining lease in a full glare of the country, and I did so with press available, present as they are today. It was all out of the abundance of transparency. So that's the first point. The second point is that it's important that even whilst a lot of water is passed under the bridge and a lot of debates has happened between various actors, some of it is gotten passionate and some of it is gotten heated by mining experts, technical people, and academia, professors of political science and all of that. I think it's good that at long last we have gotten the platform to begin to talk to each other and not at each other, and to have an opportunity to judge and to brainstorm on how to build our country through the exploitation and management of our natural resources. That is the only way we can bring about progress in our country. Elsewhere, where it's been done because everybody had a say, because it's out of our collective wisdom that we can chart a positive way forward. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important I get 2 or 3 matters out of the way. The first one is that matters like this and a matter like this, an expert-loaded area like this, complex area like this, very intricate area like this, will require to segregate opinions, emotions from facts, data, and expert opinion. It's absolutely important. Even whilst I was on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM this morning, when the host, Kojo and Winston, asked me questions which I do not understand, I tell them, hold on, I have to call the CEO of the Minerals Commission. Because even though I've been Minister for Mines for 3 years, I'm not about to pretend that I'm an expert in mining. I'm not. And that is why I have a plethora of technical people, advisors like Mr. Ayi and Co, who've been in the system for so long, distinguished public servant in the mining sector, been CEO of the Minerals Commission, and so many other people to advise me. So I think it's important that we insist that we take out the emotions, take out the conjecture, take out, it must be this. If this is that, it certainly must be that. Somebody has gone that, somebody has gotten that, or this, and so on. I think so. No. I think it should be based on data. We should proceed on facts, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to also say, respectfully, ladies and gentlemen, that facts are facts. I can't have my set of facts, and Mr. Ayi will have his set of facts, and Mr. Manteo will have a set of facts. Fui Chikata will have a set of facts. Mr. Ansa will have a set of facts. Professor Jampo will have a set of facts. Bryce Simon will have it. It cannot be. We can't make progress. Facts are facts. And so the discourse should also recognize the need for us to stick to the facts, and so on and so forth. Is Ghana's royalty rate 10%? Yes, it is. No, it is not. We have to establish the fact. Is it lower than the royalty rate of Mali, which is 6%? Yes, it is lower than it. Yes, it is lower than it. You can say, yes, it is lower than it, but you could have gotten better because of A, B, C, D reasons. But you cannot say it is not lower than it. So the concept of fact is absolutely important. Now, the lease which has been signed with Barari DV, a subsidiary of Atlantic Lithium, where are we with it? I think it's important for me to point out that the government never rushed into signing this lease, not at all. And the government, with the greatest of respect, went through a laborious, long, detailed processes in arriving or in getting to signing this lease with Barari DV. You will care to know that Barari DV, having made a commercial find for lithium, put in an application for a mining lease as far back as March 2022. And per section 39.2 of Act 703, they have a right of first refusal. They have a right of lease subject to regulatory compliance. So ordinarily, having made a commercial find, the next step was automatic grant of a mining lease to the company. But the President Akufo-Addo, expressly insisted that given the peculiarity of the green minerals of our country, particularly lithium, we ought to have a policy for the management and exploitation of the green minerals of our country before we can take any step in negotiating with Atlantic Lithium and hopefully or possibly get to a situation where we eventually sign a mining lease with them, as we have done. So, what were the processes which led to the signing of the mining lease? I'm sure you know that on 1st August 2012, Barari DV was granted a recognizance license, and on 23rd March 2018, they were granted a prospecting license after successful recognizance. And thereafter, after discovering lithium in commercial quantities, they applied for a mining lease. And as I say, the President insisted that we develop a policy before we engage the company. And indeed, on 13th July 2022, I made a statement on the floor of Parliament on the proposed policy and the contours of the policy for the management and exploitation of the green minerals of our country and lithium in particular. And some of the proposals or alternative or suggestions which are being urged upon government today were mentioned or were discussed in that statement. And I have a copy of the statement here. Before I leave, I'll hand this compendium to the organizers of this workshop, and you will see the statement I delivered on the 13th July 2022. Following inputs from Parliament and other stakeholders, we presented a memorandum to Cabinet, and after a thorough examination of the memorandum, on 27th July 2023, at the 55th Cabinet meeting of President Akufo-Addo, the memorandum was examined thoroughly. The Chief Executive Officer was there with me, and he will attest to the fact that it took us almost 4 to 5 hours to exhaust this single memorandum. There was a careful examination of the memorandum. It was dissected. All the alternatives were examined, whether we should go on along the lines of GEARDEC or GISDEC or the other ones that I've heard. Tender, this service contract, joint venture, and so on. All of those were examined. And as I say, the policy was amended and its revised form was approved by the Cabinet. Specifically, the Cabinet approved the following policies for the exploitation of green minerals. The Cabinet said that, 1, we should have a royalty rate not less than 7%, which is a minimum of 7%. It specifically said royalties rates applicable to green minerals be set at a minimum of 7%. As you do know, royalty rates in Ghana is pegged at 5% across board. All the large-scale mining companies in our country pay royalty rates of 5%. So the Cabinet said, don't go below 7%. Then the cabinet said we should have a regime for value addition when it comes to the green minerals of our country, and the retention of a significant proportion of the value chain. And also said that we should review Act 703 to provide, in addition to the 10% free carried interest for the state, for additional mandatory Ghanaian participation similar to the requirements in Act 976 and Act 988. Act 976 being GIADEC, Act 988 being GISDEC, to ensure a minimum Ghanaian participation of 30% at the mining stage. Minerals Income Investment Fund should manage the state's interests in line with its legislation and facilitate other Ghanaian participation. And then the issue of local content, and it goes on and on and on. So it is on the basis of this cabinet decision that we then step forward to negotiate with Atlantic Lithium. And I mean, it will interest you to know that for Atlantic Lithium, they have been on our case for almost 2 years now for their mining lease to be granted them, because that is what the law stipulates. That is what they should have gotten as of right. But we insisted that we needed to go through all the correct processes methodically before we will be in a position to have a proper framework to guide this negotiation. And the negotiation began. And as a result of the negotiation, we were able to come up with these terms, this arrangement. And the terms are such that even though Cabinet set a minimum royalty rate of 7%, the royalty rate we were able to negotiate was 10%. Value addition. If you look at Schedule 2, Clause 1 of the mining lease, you will see that we have set out copiously the processes which will lead to Atlantic Lithium establishing here in Ghana a chemical plant or a refinery for value addition to the lithium they will be producing. My friends, I mean, these things, when you say them, it's almost as if you are on the high falutin ground, you know. But that is the truth. We've never, in the history of our country, signed a mining lease where we have a clause, a mandatory clause, which enjoins the concessionaire, which enjoins the company to add value to the mineral. Somebody should say that to me. Not one. Not in gold, not in bauxite, not in manganese, not in diamond, across board. This is the first time in the history of our country where we have put in place a mandatory clause which says that Atlantic Lithium should establish a chemical plant here in Ghana. That's the first time. And gone further to say that if they fail to establish the chemical plant and a third party were to establish the chemical plant, they are obliged to give an exclusive off-taker arrangement or agreement to this third party, so that all the produce they extract will be sent to this third party chemical plant. So I've said it and I want to repeat it. For us, for our purposes, and for this arrangement we have, there can be no situation or under no circumstances will raw lithium be exported out of our country. That is the arrangement we have. There's a raw lithium. He likes to hold it. He should learn to break it into two so that I can have one. On a more serious note, ladies and gentlemen, we've also said that the byproducts of Atlantic Lithium's operations, the feldspar, the kaolin, the silica, which are the ingredients, which are the raw materials for the ceramic industry in our country. And we have a very robust ceramic industry in this country, which has the potential to grow. We have said that those byproducts cannot be exported out of Ghana, and that they will be at the exclusive disposal of Ghanaian industry, the ceramic industry. And that the only time these products can be exported out of the country is with the permission of the minister. And the permission of the minister is not unchecked. The check on the discretion of the minister is that the minister can only grant permission when there is no local demand. Once there is local demand, all the byproducts remain in country. And then you come to free carried interest. And free carried interest, I'd like to explain a bit, ladies and gentlemen. Indulge me to explain. We've had a lot of discussions in Ghana, legitimate discussions, about how our mineral resources have not benefited us as a country. And we are very quick to point out Johannesburg, to point out Perth, to point out Canada, to point out other jurisdictions, and to say that their mineral resources have developed those countries. But when you go to Takwa, you go to Obuasi, you go to Pristia, you go to Huni Valley and the rest, these are still underdeveloped or not developed at all towns in our country. I want to submit, and I've said this many times, both internationally and in country, that the reason why that is so is because in those countries there is what we call indigenous participation. So when you go to China, Cardinal Namdini, which is a subsidiary of Shandong Gold, Shandong Gold being the biggest gold company in China. Shandong Gold is listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. So Chinese people can take shares and own shares and deal with the shares. And when the prices go up, they can sell and make millions of dollars and make prosperity and be happy. When you go to South African mining companies are listed on their stock exchanges. So South Africans can take shares in the companies and dividends out of the profits of the company. So when the price of gold go up, they move to the bank smiling. Of course, in South Africa, there's also the issue of apartheid mining as to who are the people who hold the shares, whether it's the whites or the black. That's another matter altogether. When you go to Australia, it's the same thing. So what we have not done in Ghana is indigenous participation in our mining industry. I have heard people legitimately and rightly get concerned that this transaction, this lease, is it the same as the colonial style of mining? My friends, with the greatest of respect and in all humility and modesty, I say a big no. This is fundamentally different from the colonial architecture for mining. And it is different because of two reasons, two fundamental reasons. One is that we have made provisions for indigenous participation in this mining enterprise. We've made provisions for indigenous participation. And it's never been the case before. Goldfields is not required to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Newmont is not required to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Anglo Gold is not required to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. I'm still working with the Minerals Commission and other stakeholders to find a mechanism of course, the Minerals Commission, the Chamber of Mines, and other stakeholders to find a mechanism to have these companies list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Now, they list on other stock exchanges, London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange. And New Yorkers get the opportunity to buy shares in this company. Londoners get the opportunity to buy shares in this company. So when they make huge profits, those profits don't trickle down to you and I. The profits are enjoyed by their shareholders in New York, in London, in Australia, in Canada, and in other parts of the country. This is the first time that by law, we have made provision mandatorily to insist that this company will have to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Not only do they have to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange, they are required to have a minimum of 30% Ghanaian participation. We already have 19% Ghanaian participation. So we have 11 more to go. And it could be more. If a lot more Ghanaians have the funding and they have the strength, the financial strength to be able to buy shares, it will go as far as 70%. So this provision, this arrangement, to my mind, this arrangement is the number one factor or term or provision of this lease, which jettisons the colonial term of mining and which departs fundamentally from this colonial architecture of mining. Indigenization, indigenous participation. Then the second one is value addition. Because in the past, what we have had is the export of raw minerals. That's what has been the case. From 1957 or from 1900, Governor Augsburg's time, all the way to now, they mine the mineral and they export it in its raw state. That's what has been the case. This is the first time we have signed a mining lease and put in mandatory clauses which says that they will have to retain a significant proportion of the value chain in country by establishing a chemical plant and a refinery here in Ghana. It's never happened before. So these are the two fundamental provisions in the lease, which for me should give all of us comfort that this is fundamentally different and absolutely different from the mining leases we signed in the past. Of course, the issue of local content, contract mining, which I'm told constitutes about 38% of the operations of a mine, the issue of services, which are reserved for Ghanaians, the issue of the feldspar, the kaolin, and the silica I mentioned, which is going to feed into our ceramic industry, the fiscal regime, the royalties, the issue of corporate tax and all of that, which is why Mr. Kofi Ansah and Mr. Fui Chikata, two very distinguished, renowned, and respected mining experts in our country, have actually come to the conclusion to say that when you take the totality of the provisions in relation to this lease between the government of Ghana and the concessionaire, when you take the totality, you put all of it together, income tax, royalties, free carried interest, and all of that, they believe, and they've come to the expert conclusion, that the government will get about 51% of the direct project monetary benefits, with the company getting 49%. Now, I'd like to just conclude on the matter to do with the substantive portions of the lease by indicating, for example, that when you take royalties, Australia accounts for 52% of global lithium production. Australia. Chile accounts for 25%. Zimbabwe is the largest lithium producing country in Africa, Zimbabwe. And in fact, their grades are better and higher than ours. And yet, my friends, when it comes to royalties, Australia pegs its royalties at 5%. Mali pegs its royalty at 6%. The number one producer of lithium in Africa pegs its royalty at 5%. The Ghana government is negotiated, in spite of our relative small lithium production, at 10%. Twice Zimbabwe, 4% more than Mali, twice Australia. There we are. And then when you come to free carried interest, Mali pegs their free carried interest at 10%. Zimbabwe has 0% free carried interest. Ghana has 13% free carried interest. When you come to corporate income tax, Australia has 30%, Mali 30%, Zimbabwe 25%, Ghana 35%. That is what we've negotiated for. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you that this government is a listening government. And this government will listen to you and will listen to Ghanaians and will listen to any and everybody who has something to say or offer in the structuring of the national life of Ghana, particularly the management and exploitation of the natural resources of our country. And in any event, the Constitution is clear in black and white that the natural resources of our country are the property of the Ghanaian people. And the president holds those resources in trust for the Ghanaian people. And so the president, whom I'm acting on his behalf, we both have a fiduciary duty towards the Ghanaian people to manage these resources, with candor, with honesty, with competence, with transparency, and with integrity. And I can assure you that that's exactly what we are doing. We are happy to listen to opinions, and if we ever came across a proposal or an alternative which we believe is superior and we need to look into, we will look into it. But of course, the lease is not been laid before Parliament yet. So between now and the time the lease will be laid, I'm sure the conversation will continue, the discourse will continue. But the discourse will continue to a point where we will contemplate any review, if any at all, of this lease, if there are concrete proposals on the table which persuades us that we should take that path. But for the time being, let me say it and say it with respect and do so forcefully, that government is fully satisfied with the terms we've reached with this company, and we did so thoroughly for a long period of time. We crossed the T's, we dot the I's, and we've come to the conclusion that this arrangement is absolutely in the interest of the people of Ghana. And I urge you to support us. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'll take 1 or 2, 3 questions if there are any contributions, suggestions. It's only fair. Doc, please.
Honorable Minister, first I would applaud you for availing yourself for public discussion on this lithium contract. This should have happened the day after the declaration of commerciality of lithium find in Ghana, as we did with oil. But it's not too late. I note that most of the fiscal terms negotiated in this lithium agreement departs from the provisions in our law, but they are superior to what has been provided in the law. I want to appeal to your office and to the Minerals Commission to amend the law so that what has been negotiated will be consistent with the law, so we avoid any future litigation.
My name is Gloria Bentel. I'm representing women in mining Ghana. I'm very happy about the summary you've given. It's very impressive. In the past, when it comes to women participation, the law is not very clear. So I suggest that much as we are putting the framework and document together for implementation, issues about women participation should be indicated very clear. For instance, if the previous ones were having like 5% participation of women within the value chain, this time I urge that we increase it, and we should be very clear on that. Thank you.
My name is Benjamin Boache with the Africa Center for Energy Policy. There's a big conversation about the celebration around MIF and its investment in the lithium project. We've seen about $32 million committed to the project. How do you convince a citizen that MIF is investing $32 million to get about 6% in the local business and also 3% in Atlantic globally, and Piedmont is spending $103 million and getting 50%?
I'm a journalist from City News. Yesterday, the Mankesim chief stated categorically that they are rejecting the 1% community share that is stated in the lease. Has that gotten to your attention? What are you going to do about it?
First of all, let me say that I agree with the sentiment which seems to run across, and my senior fellow, Dr. Mantio, set the ball rolling as to the need for us to continuously engage. We say here in Ghana, better late than never. But I would have preferred, as he said, not so much I would have preferred. He preferred, and I agree with him, that we probably should have met much earlier. I agree 110%. And I want to propose, Mr. Chief Executive Officer, now moving forward, let's try and have, at the very least, quarterly engagement, and at the very best, monthly engagement with civil society. I think it's the only way. Is the only way we can try and be on the same page. And I should point out also that you have a lot to contribute in policy formulation, and through this interaction, there are a couple of things that I've taken note of, which I'll follow up on. So it's very much in the interest of our country for us to engage. Madam Gloria Bentel wants to know about women participation. I think that the issue of women participation is very key, and not just in this Atlantic Lithium arrangement, but the whole mining industry, the whole value chain, and what sort of policies are we going to be able to enact to have an affirmative action for women. And I think, Mr. CEO, you should take a critical note of that. The local content laws, catering, we say catering. Mining companies spend millions of dollars on catering. I don't know if you know that. Yes, because they run a regimented system, they keep their staff within a closed system, and so they feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they spend a colossal sum of money on that. Is it, for example, possible to say in the local content laws that that area is reserved for women, something like that? So let's examine that, and I think that the point she's raised is a very important point. Mr. Benjamin Boache, so the issue of the shares, how is it that Piedmont paid $103 million and got 35%, 50% in the parent company, in the local company, and yet MEF is paying 13% and getting 6% in the local company and 3% in the parent company? The only comment I'll make about that is that I agree with you that perhaps we should have a little more in-depth analysis, even though I do know that the MEF people are very much on top of their game, and they are very confident that they are on firm grounds and that they made a proper, good investment decision, and that is giving us value for money. My esteemed Chief, first of all, I think it's important we point that out. This is the first time a community development fund is being negotiated and legislated upon. This is the first time. The mining companies in our country historically had the discretion to determine what amount of money or what revenue they will assign for community development. That's a fact. The mining companies, historically, see, am I right in saying so? Yes, the mining companies had their discretion to say, look, we are going to allocate.
Well, and that's all we have for you in this package of the Pulse. I'm Blessed Soga, and as we wrap up, we are, of course, heading into the African Cup of Nations tournament, and the Ghana Black Stars has its final team announced today by Coach Chris Houghton, who addressed the media today. Joy Sports actually brought you a special coverage, which we are bringing back to you for those who missed the action. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.